The rain hammered against the cafe window as Daniel Carter watched a woman step through the door, a toddler clinging to her hip. His blind date. Maya Lewis froze when their eyes met, her entire body tensing like she was preparing for impact, for the inevitable moment when he'd make an excuse and leave. But Daniel didn't move. He didn't check his phone or suddenly remember an appointment. Instead, he stood, walked toward her, and did something that would change 4 lives forever. He smiled at the child first. That single choice, to see rather than judge, would unravel years of pain and rebuild something neither of them thought possible again. Before we dive into this incredible journey, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you believe in second chances and chosen families, hit that like button. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The coffee shop smelled like roasted beans and wet pavement, that particular Seattle combination that Daniel Carter had come to associate with uncomfortable first meetings. He'd arrived 15 minutes early, a habit he couldn't break even when he wanted to. His therapist said it was about control, about managing the chaos that had consumed his life 3 years ago when cancer took his wife and left him a single father to a daughter who still asked why mommy didn't come home. Daniel sat in the corner booth, the one with a clear view of the entrance, and tried not to think about how desperately he didn't want to be here. His sister had set this up, insisted that grief had an expiration date for the living, that his daughter Emma needed to see him try again. He'd agreed just to stop the arguments, convinced that nothing would come of it anyway. The rain intensified, sheets of water obscuring the street beyond. Daniel checked his phone. 3 minutes past 7. She was late. Relief started to bloom in his chest. Maybe she wouldn't show. Maybe he could go home to Emma and their safe, predictable routine of bedtime stories and... The door opened. She was different from her pictures. Not in a catfishing way, but in the way that photographs flatten people, strip away the nervous energy and the weight they carry in their shoulders. Maya Lewis stepped inside, shaking water from her dark hair, and Daniel started to rise, started to smile, started to prepare his opening line. Then he saw the child. A little girl, maybe 2 years old, attached to Maya's hip like she'd been grafted there. The toddler's face was buried against her mother's neck, small fingers clutching a worn stuffed rabbit that had clearly seen better days. Maya's eyes swept the cafe and landed on Daniel. He watched her face change, watched her entire body language shift from hopeful to defensive in the span of a heartbeat. She knew what was coming. Daniel had seen that look before, on Emma's face when kids at daycare excluded her from games, when she braced for disappointment. It was the look of someone preparing to be hurt, someone who'd learned that hope was just a prelude to pain. Most men would have made an excuse, would have suddenly remembered an early meeting, a sick relative, anything to justify the exit. Daniel had heard the stories from other single parents, knew how this usually played out. The unwritten rules of modern dating didn't include toddlers at first meetings. This was supposed to be a carefully curated introduction, a chance to present the best version of yourself before revealing the complications. But Daniel had spent 3 years learning that life didn't care about carefully curated anything. He stood up fully and walked toward them, not away. Maya's eyes widened slightly, confusion flickering across her features. The cafe noise seemed to fade, the hiss of the espresso machine, the murmur of other conversations, the rain against the windows. All of it became background static as Daniel stopped in front of them. "Hi," he said, but he wasn't looking at Maya. He was crouching down slightly, bringing himself to the toddler's eye level. "What's your friend's name?" The little girl peeked out from Maya's shoulder, dark eyes cautious. Her grip on the stuffed rabbit tightened. "This is Sophie," Maya said, her voice carefully neutral, like she was narrating something she'd rehearsed but didn't believe would work. "Sophie, this is Daniel." "Hi, Sophie," Daniel said gently. "I have a daughter too. Her name is Emma, and she's 4. She has a stuffed elephant named Mr. Trunk who goes everywhere with her." He nodded at the rabbit. "Does your friend have a name?" Sophie studied him for a long moment, then whispered something into the rabbit's ear. Maya's shoulders dropped half an inch, a release of tension so subtle most people wouldn't have noticed. But Daniel had spent years reading his daughter's body language, learning to spot the difference between genuine comfort and performance, and he recognized what he was seeing: surprise. "His name is Carrot," Sophie finally said, her voice small but clear. That's a very good name for a rabbit, Daniel said seriously. Much better than if you'd named him lettuce or broccoli. The corner of Sophie's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Daniel straightened and met Maya's eyes properly for the first time. Up close, she was striking, not in a conventional way, but in the way of someone who'd survived things and come out harder for it. There were shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, and her smile, when it came, was careful, practiced. I'm sorry, she said. My babysitter canceled last minute and I didn't have time to— Don't apologize, Daniel interrupted gently. I get it. Childcare falls through, life happens. I'm just glad you still came. He gestured to the booth. Shall we? Maya nodded, still looking like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop, for this to be some elaborate setup for rejection. She slid into the booth across from him, settling Sophie onto her lap. The toddler immediately started playing with the sugar packets, lining them up with the intense concentration only small children could muster. Daniel sat back down and noticed the way Maya's hand automatically moved to steady Sophie, the unconscious adjustment of her body to make sure the child was comfortable. He recognized that too, the way parenthood rewired you, made another person's comfort more important than your own. So, Maya said, clearly forcing lightness into her tone, this is probably not how you expected tonight to go. No, Daniel admitted, but I stopped expecting things to go according to plan about 3 years ago. He paused, then decided on honesty. I'm a single dad. My wife died when Emma was almost 2. So trust me when I say I understand that kids don't exist in a separate compartment from the rest of life. They're always there, and anyone who can't handle that isn't worth my time anyway. Maya's carefully constructed mask cracked. He watched her process his words, saw the shift from defensive to something else, something vulnerable and raw and real. I didn't know, she said quietly. Your profile didn't mention, I know. I put it in later, after I got tired of first dates where women treated Emma like a deal breaker. Daniel flagged down the waitress. What do you drink? Coffee? Tea? Wine? Coffee, Maya said. Black with, 2 sugars, Sophie announced, looking up from her sugar packet arrangement. Mommy takes 2. Daniel smiled. Coffee, black, 2 sugars, and— He looked at Sophie. What do you like? Hot chocolate, Sophie said, then immediately looked at Maya for permission. Can I? It's almost bedtime, Maya started, then sighed. Yes, okay, but a small one. The waitress took their order and disappeared. In the silence that followed, Daniel could feel Maya watching him, trying to figure out if this was real or some kind of performance. He understood that too, the suspicion that kindness always came with conditions. Your sister set this up, right? Maya asked. Did she tell you about— She gestured vaguely at Sophie. She told me you were smart, funny, and terrible at picking restaurants. Nothing about kids. That sounds like Jennifer. Maya's laugh was short, brittle. She believes in the element of surprise. Jennifer Chen. We went to college together. She's mentioned you a few times over the years. Daniel leaned back. She also said you were a graphic designer who worked from home and had strong opinions about Oxford commas. They're grammatically necessary, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong, Maya said automatically, then seemed to catch herself. Sorry, that's probably not normal first date conversation. I don't know what normal first date conversation is anymore, Daniel said honestly. I haven't done this in a while. Years, actually. Emma's grandmother usually watches her when I have to work late, but dating— He shook his head. It feels impossible. How do you find time? How do you trust someone new around your kid? How do you— Explain that your entire life revolves around someone who can't tie their own shoes yet, Maya finished. Yeah, I know. Their drinks arrived. Sophie immediately grabbed her hot chocolate, and Maya automatically pulled it away from the edge of the table, testing the temperature before handing it back. Daniel found himself cataloging these small actions, the evidence of practiced motherhood. How long have you been doing this alone? He asked. Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, steam rising between them. Almost 2 years, since Sophie was 6 months old. Divorced? Something painful flashed across Maya's face. It's complicated. Daniel nodded, recognizing a boundary. You don't have to explain. I was just making conversation. They sat in silence for a moment, Sophie humming tunelessly while she carefully sipped her drink. The rain continued its assault on the windows, the world outside reduced to blurred shapes and running colors. Inside the cafe, warmth and light created a bubble that felt separate from reality, a temporary reprieve from the complications waiting beyond the door. What do you do? Maya asked, clearly trying to steer towards safer territory. I'm a teacher, high school English. I know. Summer's off, great hours for parenting. Daniel smiled wryly. In reality, I'm grading papers until midnight, and Emma thinks that red pens are what daddies use to write. Jennifer mentioned you were a teacher. She said you were the guy who actually made Shakespeare interesting. I try. Mostly, I just remind them that Romeo and Juliet were teenagers making catastrophically bad decisions, and suddenly it all makes sense to them. Maya laughed, and this time it sounded genuine. Sophie looked up at her mother, and Daniel saw something pass between them, a shared moment of happiness that they both recognized as precious because it was rare. What about you? Daniel asked. What kind of design work do you do? Freelance branding mostly. Small businesses, startups. I help them figure out their visual identity. Maya's eyes lit up slightly. Last month I worked with a bookstore that wanted to completely reimagine their image. It was amazing. All these vintage books, and the owner had this vision for incorporating local art into the space. She talked for several minutes about color theory and font psychology and the way good design could tell a story before a single word was read. Daniel watched her hands move as she described projects, noticed the way her guard lowered when she talked about work, how Sophie leaned against her mother's chest and played contentedly while Maya's voice took on new energy. This was the real Maya, he thought, not the defensive woman who'd walked in expecting rejection, but this, someone passionate and creative and clearly brilliant at what she did. Sorry, Maya said, catching herself. I'm talking too much. No, you're not. I asked. Daniel meant it. It's nice to hear someone talk about their work like they actually care about it. Most people I know treat their jobs like necessary evils. Teaching isn't like that for you? Teaching is... Daniel considered. Teaching is the only thing that saved me, honestly. After Catherine died, I had to keep showing up because those kids needed me to. And Emma needed to see that life continues, that you can be heartbroken and still function. So yeah, I care about it. Maybe too much. There's no such thing as caring too much, Maya said quietly. The world would be better if more people cared more, not less. Sophie yawned, a huge jaw-cracking yawn that showed all her tiny teeth. She rubbed her eyes with one fist, still clutching Carrot with the other hand. Someone's getting tired, Maya said, smoothing Sophie's hair. We should probably... Don't leave yet, Daniel said, then felt his face warm. I mean, if you don't want to. But if Sophie needs to sleep, I understand. Maya hesitated, clearly torn. She usually goes down at 8, and it's already past that. What if we walked? Daniel suggested. There's a park 2 blocks from here with covered areas. The rain's lighter now. If she falls asleep, you could let her rest, and we could talk a bit more. It was a risk, pushing for more time. But Daniel had learned that safe choices rarely led anywhere worth going. Maya studied his face, searching for something, sincerity, maybe, or proof that this wasn't just politeness masking disinterest. Okay, she finally said. Yeah, let's walk. They paid and headed out into the Seattle drizzle, Maya carrying Sophie while Daniel held an umbrella over them. The park was mostly empty, just a few die-hard runners and someone walking a very wet golden retriever. They found a gazebo and settled onto a bench. Sophie's eyes were already drooping. She goes down fast when she's tired, Maya said, adjusting the toddler in her lap. 5 more minutes and she'll be out completely. Emma's the same way. It's like someone flips a switch and suddenly she's unconscious. Daniel smiled at the memory. Though getting her to admit she's tired is like negotiating with a very small, very stubborn diplomat. Sophie's getting there. The terrible 2s are becoming the tyrannical 2s. They watched the rain together, the comfortable silence of 2 people who'd unexpectedly found themselves on the same wavelength. Sophie's breathing deepened, evened out. Her small body went heavy in Maya's arms, complete surrender to sleep. "This is nice," Maya said softly. "I didn't think it would be, but it is. You thought I'd bail when I saw Sophie." It wasn't a question, but Maya nodded anyway. "Most guys do. Or they stay out of politeness and spend the whole time checking their phones. Or they pretend to be okay with it and then ghost afterward." She looked down at her sleeping daughter. "Dating as a single mom means learning to expect disappointment." "Dating as a single dad isn't much easier," Daniel said. "Women say they're fine with kids until they realize what that actually means. No spontaneous weekend trips, no last-minute dinner plans, no undivided attention. It's a lot of maybe next time, and I understand that really means this is too complicated." "Exactly." Maya's voice was fierce now, years of frustration bleeding through. "Like our kids are baggage instead of people. Like loving them makes us less somehow, instead of more." "They make us more," Daniel said firmly. "Everything I've learned about patience, about unconditional love, about showing up even when you're exhausted, that's all from Emma. She made me better." Maya turned to look at him, really look at him. "You mean that?" "Every word." "Most people don't. Most people see single parents as broken or desperate or damaged goods," Daniel finished. "Yeah, I've heard that one. Usually followed by some speech about baggage and emotional unavailability." He shook his head. "But the truth is, I'm not damaged. I'm different than I was before Catherine died, sure. But different isn't broken. It's just different." "Different isn't broken," Maya repeated slowly, like she was testing the words, seeing how they felt. "I like that." The rain softened to mist. A couple walked past hand in hand, laughing about something, and Daniel felt a pang of envy for their simplicity, their uncomplicated joy. Then Sophie shifted in her sleep, made a small sound, and Maya automatically adjusted her position to keep her comfortable. And Daniel thought, maybe complicated was okay. Maybe complicated was even better because it was real. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "And you can tell me if it's too personal." "Go ahead." "What made you agree to this? The blind date, I mean. You said you haven't dated in years." Daniel considered the question, wanting to answer honestly. "Emma asked me why I didn't have a friend like her friend Zoe's mom has. She meant boyfriend, but she's 4, so the vocabulary isn't quite there yet." He smiled at the memory. "And I realized she was right. I've been so focused on protecting her from more loss that I've been modeling isolation. I don't want her to learn that love is something you do once, and then you're done." "That's..." Maya's eyes were bright. "That's really beautiful. It's also terrifying. Opening up again, letting someone new into our lives. What if it goes wrong? What if Emma gets attached and then it falls apart?" Daniel looked at Sophie. "How do you handle that fear?" "Honestly, I don't date much." Maya's laugh was self-deprecating. "This is actually my first attempt in over a year, and I almost canceled 3 times today." "Why didn't you?" "Because Jennifer wouldn't stop texting me, and because..." She paused. "Because Sophie started asking why we didn't have family pictures like her daycare friends. Just the 2 of us in every photo, and I thought maybe I owed it to her to at least try." They sat with that admission, the weight of it. 2 people who'd convinced themselves that isolation was safety, that keeping others out meant keeping pain out, slowly recognizing that their children deserved to see them try. "You know what's weird?" Daniel said. "This is the most honest first date conversation I've ever had. Usually it's all surface stuff, favorite movies, travel stories, safe topics." "Surface stuff is easier," Maya agreed, "but it's also pointless. Why waste time pretending we're people without complications when complications are most of what we are?" "Exactly." Sophie stirred, made a small, sleepy sound. Maya looked down at her with such tenderness that Daniel felt something shift in his chest, recognition of someone who loved with the same fierce, protective intensity he felt for Emma. "I should get her home," Maya said reluctantly. "She'll wake up cranky if her whole routine gets thrown off." "I understand." Daniel stood. "Can I walk you to your car?" "That would be nice." They left the gazebo and headed toward the parking lot, Maya carrying Sophie, Daniel still holding the umbrella. The mist clung to everything, made the streetlights haloed and soft. Their footsteps echoed on wet pavement. "Daniel?" Maya stopped beside a slightly beat-up Honda. "Thank you for not making this weird, for not making me feel like I'd done something wrong by bringing her." "You didn't do anything wrong. You're a mom. She comes first. Anyone who doesn't understand that isn't worth your time." He paused. "For what it's worth, I'd really like to see you again. Both of you." Maya's smile was tentative, hopeful. "Yeah? Yeah. Maybe somewhere more kid-friendly next time. There's a children's museum Emma loves, or we could do a park play date. Let them run around while we talk. Sophie would love that." Maya shifted the sleeping toddler to get her keys. "Next Saturday? If the weather clears?" "Next Saturday works." They exchanged numbers. The practical exchange made somehow significant by the moment. Maya opened her car door, started buckling Sophie into her car seat. The toddler didn't even wake up, just curled into the familiar comfort of her spot. "Drive safe," Daniel said. "You too." He watched her pull away, taillights disappearing into the mist, and felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years: anticipation. Not just for the date, but for the possibility of what might come after. For the first time since Catherine's death, the future didn't look like an endless stretch of managing alone. It looked like maybe, possibly, something more. Daniel walked to his own car, the rain picking up again, and thought about Emma asleep at her grandmother's house. He thought about Maya's careful hope and Sophie's wary trust. He thought about second chances and chosen families, and the way life surprised you when you finally stopped trying to control every variable. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Thank you for tonight. Sophie's already asking when she can see Carrot's new friend." Daniel smiled and typed back, "Tell her Mr. Trunk is looking forward to it too." Another buzz. "Seriously though, thank you for seeing us, for staying. Thank you for giving me a chance to. Drive safe." He sat in his car for a moment before starting the engine, letting himself feel the full weight of what had just happened. He'd gone to that cafe expecting nothing, armed with excuses and ready to retreat. Instead, he'd found someone who understood, not theoretically, but actually understood, what it meant to build a life around loving a child more than yourself. The drive home was quiet, his mind replaying conversations, cataloging moments. The way Maya had automatically pulled Sophie's hot chocolate away from the table edge. The fierceness in her voice when she talked about kids being blessings instead of baggage. The careful hope in her eyes when she'd agreed to see him again. When he pulled into his driveway, his mother-in-law's car was still there. He found her on the couch, Emma asleep beside her, some animated movie playing on mute. "How'd it go?" Margaret asked, carefully extracting herself from Emma's sleeping form. "It went..." Daniel paused, trying to find the right words. "It went really well, actually." Margaret smiled, the kind of smile that held both happiness and sadness. Joy that he was moving forward, grief for her daughter who would never get to see it. "Good. You deserve that, Daniel. You both do." After Margaret left, Daniel carried Emma upstairs to her room, tucked her into bed with Mr. Trunk. She stirred briefly, mumbled something about pancakes, then fell back into sleep. He stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her breathe, thinking about how much of his life revolved around protecting this small person. But maybe protection didn't mean isolation. Maybe it meant showing her that the world could be trusted again, carefully, with eyes wide open. That love wasn't a one-time thing you either got right or lost forever. That families could be built and rebuilt. That new people could be welcomed without betraying the memory of those who'd gone. Daniel went to his own room, looked at the photo on his nightstand. Him and Catherine on their wedding day, both of them impossibly young and happy. He picked it up, traced the outline of her face. "I think I might have met someone," he said quietly. "She's got a daughter, Sophie, 2 years old. And Maya, she's smart and careful and scared of exactly the same things I'm scared of." He paused. "I think you'd like her. I think you'd tell me to stop overthinking it and just see where it goes." He set the photo down and climbed into bed, his phone on the nightstand. Part of him wanted to text Maya again, to make sure tonight had been real, but he forced himself to wait, to let the moment be what it was without rushing toward what came next. His phone buzzed one more time. "Maya, I keep thinking I imagined how well that went. Tell me I didn't." Daniel smiled in the darkness and typed, "You didn't." It was real. All of it. Good. That's good. Get some sleep, Maya. You too, Daniel. See you Saturday. See you Saturday. He set the phone down and closed his eyes, listening to the rain against the windows, feeling the first fragile tendrils of hope taking root. Tomorrow he'd wake up, and Emma would want pancakes, and the routine would continue as it always did. But now there was something new woven into the pattern, a future that included other people, other possibilities. The rain continued through the night, washing the city clean, and Daniel slept better than he had in months. The week between that rainy Tuesday and Saturday stretched long, filled with small anxieties and careful hope. Daniel found himself checking his phone more than usual, exchanging texts with Maya that started practical, confirming times, discussing logistics, and gradually became more personal. She sent him a photo of Sophie covered in spaghetti sauce, captioned, "Dinner is going well." He responded with a picture of Emma's latest crayon masterpiece, an abstract explosion of purple that she insisted was a portrait of him. Maya wrote back, "I see the resemblance with a laughing emoji," and Daniel felt something warm settle in his chest. On Thursday night, Emma asked about the museum trip he'd mentioned casually at breakfast. "Is it just us, Daddy? Or is Grandma coming?" Daniel sat down on the edge of her bed, where she was supposed to be sleeping but was instead arranging her stuffed animals in what she called family groups. "Actually, I thought we might meet some new friends there. Would that be okay?" Emma's eyes widened with interest. "What kind of friends?" "There's a lady named Maya, and she has a daughter about your age named Sophie. I met them earlier this week, and I thought maybe you two would like to play together." "Does Sophie like elephants?" Emma held up Mr. Trunk as if the answer to this question would determine everything. "I don't know, but we can ask her. She has a stuffed rabbit named Carrot." Emma considered this seriously. "Carrot is a good name." "Okay, Daddy. We can be friends with them." Daniel smiled at the easy certainty of childhood, the way Emma could make decisions about people in seconds that adults agonized over for weeks. "Sounds good, sweetheart. Now sleep, or you'll be too tired to have fun on Saturday." She snuggled down under her covers, Mr. Trunk tucked firmly under one arm. "Daddy, are you nervous about meeting them?" The question caught him off guard. "A little bit. Why do you ask?" "Because you keep checking your phone like when you're waiting to hear if I'm sick at school." Emma yawned. "But it's okay to be nervous. That's what you always tell me." "You're right. It's okay to be nervous." He kissed her forehead. "Now sleep." Saturday arrived with clear skies, the kind of perfect spring weather that felt like compensation for all the rain Seattle had endured. Daniel dressed Emma in clothes that could withstand museum exploration. Nothing too nice, nothing that mattered if it got dirty. She insisted on bringing Mr. Trunk, and he didn't argue. He understood the need for familiar comfort in new situations. They arrived at the Pacific Science Center 15 minutes early. Daniel's stomach was tight with anticipation, that particular cocktail of hope and fear that came with risking something that mattered. Emma bounced beside him, excited energy radiating from every movement. "Do you see them yet, Daddy?" "Not yet, sweetheart. We're a little early." They waited near the entrance, Emma pressing her face against the glass doors to peer at the exhibits inside. Daniel checked his phone. A text from Maya. "Running 5 minutes late. Sophie had a shoe crisis." He smiled and wrote back, "No problem. We're here whenever you are." 7 minutes later, he spotted them walking across the plaza. Sophie was holding Maya's hand, wearing light-up sneakers that flashed with every step. Maya looked nervous, her free hand fidgeting with her purse strap. When their eyes met, they both smiled, that shared acknowledgement of how much this moment meant. "Hi," Maya said as they approached. "Sorry we're late. Someone decided her pink shoes were absolutely unacceptable this morning." "Pink is for babies," Sophie announced solemnly. "I need big girl shoes." Emma giggled, and Sophie's attention immediately shifted to the other child. The two girls regarded each other with the solemn assessment kids always performed before deciding if someone was worth knowing. "I'm Emma. I'm 4 3/4. I'm Sophie. I'm 2.5. She held up Carrot. "This is Carrot." Emma produced Mr. Trunk. "This is Mr. Trunk. He's an elephant." "Elephants are big," Sophie observed. "Really big. The biggest land animals in the whole world." Emma was warming to her subject, always happy to share facts. Did you know they can weigh as much as a school bus? Sophie's eyes went wide. A whole bus? A whole bus. Just like that, they were chattering away, the adults forgotten. Daniel and Maya exchanged glances, that silent communication of parents watching their children navigate the world. Well, Maya said, that was easier than I expected. Kids are better at this than we are, Daniel agreed. Should we head inside? The museum was perfect. Interactive exhibits that let kids touch and explore, enough space for running around, but structured enough that they wouldn't get completely lost. Emma immediately dragged Sophie toward the water table exhibit, both girls fascinated by the system of pumps and channels and wheels. Daniel and Maya hung back, close enough to supervise, but giving the girls space to play. They found a bench with a clear view and sat down, the morning sun streaming through the skylights above. This is nice, Maya said. I haven't done something like this in a while. Usually it's just Sophie and me at the park or the library. Same. Emma and I have our routine, playground on Saturdays, grocery shopping on Sundays, but it's always just us. Daniel watched his daughter show Sophie how to make the water wheel spin. I didn't realize how isolated we'd become until I started trying to explain it to my therapist. Maya turned to look at him. You see a therapist? Since Catherine died. It helps. He paused, wondering if this was too much honesty too soon. Grief counseling at first, then just regular therapy to make sure I wasn't screwing Emma up too badly. I should probably do that, Maya said quietly. See someone, I mean. But there's never time, never money, never… She stopped herself. That's just excuses, isn't it? Sometimes excuses are how we protect ourselves from dealing with hard things. Daniel kept his eyes on Emma, making the observation gentle. At least, that's what my therapist tells me when I try to cancel sessions. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching their daughters play. Sophie was completely soaked now, giggling as water sprayed everywhere. Emma was equally wet, her careful outfit choice completely irrelevant in the face of fun. Can I ask you something? Maya said. And you can tell me it's too personal. After what we talked about on Tuesday, I think we're past worrying about too personal. She smiled at that. Fair point. I was just wondering, how do you handle the questions from Emma, about her mom? Daniel took a breath, feeling the familiar ache that always came with this topic. I tell her the truth as much as she can understand, that her mom was sick, that the doctors tried really hard to help but couldn't, that sometimes people die even when we don't want them to. She asks less now than she did the first year. Does she remember Catherine? Barely. She was so young when it happened. Sometimes I think she remembers, but other times I wonder if she's just remembering the stories I've told her, the photos I've shown her. He rubbed his face. The hardest part is knowing that Emma's losing her twice. Once to death, once to forgetting. Maya's hand found his, squeezed gently. You're keeping her alive for Emma. Through the stories, the photos, the way you talk about her, that matters. Some days it feels like enough. Other days… He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Maya understood. Sophie asks about her dad sometimes, Maya said, her voice careful. I tell her he's not in the picture, which is true, but not the whole truth. Daniel waited, sensing there was more she wanted to say. The girls had moved to a different exhibit now, something with magnets and metal filings. Sophie was concentrating intensely on making patterns, while Emma explained the science behind magnetism with the confidence of someone who'd watched a lot of educational television. The truth is complicated, Maya continued, and I don't know how to explain it to a 2-year-old when I barely understand it myself. You don't have to tell me, Daniel said. Not if you're not ready. I know, but I want to. She took a breath. Sophie's not biologically mine. Daniel kept his expression neutral, waiting. Whatever was coming, he could tell it mattered to her, that he heard it properly, that he didn't react with judgment or shock. My sister got pregnant her senior year of college, unplanned, and the father wanted nothing to do with it. Our parents basically disowned her for keeping the baby. They're very traditional, very concerned about appearances. Maya's voice hardened slightly. Rachel was going to do it alone, raise Sophie by herself. I was helping where I could, but I was building my design business, and she was in graduate school, and it was hard, but we were managing. She paused, watching Sophie play. Rachel died in childbirth, complications, hemorrhaging. They got Sophie out safely, but Rachel, her voice cracked. She never got to hold her daughter. Daniel's hand tightened around Maya's. God, Maya, I'm so sorry. I was at the hospital. I was supposed to be there for support, to help with the baby while Rachel recovered. Instead, I was making decisions about life support and funeral arrangements, and suddenly there was this baby who had no one. Maya wiped her eyes roughly. Our parents didn't want her. They said it would be a reminder of Rachel's mistake. The father had signed away his rights before she was even born. It was going to be foster care or me. So you chose her. I chose her. I was 26, single, my business was barely breaking even, and I had no idea how to take care of a baby. But she was my sister's daughter, my niece, and I loved Rachel more than anything. Maya looked at him, her eyes fierce. I know I'm not her real mother. I know I'll never be what Rachel would have been. But I'm trying, and I love her, and Maya, Daniel interrupted gently, you are her real mother. Biology doesn't make you a parent. Showing up every day makes you a parent. Loving someone more than yourself makes you a parent. Don't diminish what you've done. She stared at him, tears streaming down her face now. Most people don't see it that way. When I tell them, they treat me like I'm babysitting instead of raising my own child. Or they get weird about it, like she's not really mine, like the relationship is less valid somehow. Those people are idiots, Daniel said bluntly. You're Sophie's mother in every way that matters. You've been there for every milestone, every sick night, every moment of her life that she'll remember. That's what makes you her mom, not DNA. Maya laughed wetly, wiping her eyes. You're the first person who's ever said that to me. Everyone else either pities me or acts like I'm some kind of saint for taking her in. You're not a saint. You're a mother who loves her daughter. That's not sainthood. That's just love. Daniel glanced toward the girls, making sure they were still occupied. Emma asks sometimes why other kids have mommies, and she doesn't. I tell her that families come in all different shapes, that what matters is love, not matching genetics. I believe that. And I think Sophie is incredibly lucky to have you. Maya pressed her hand to her mouth, composing herself. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fall apart. Don't apologize. You told me something important, something real. That takes courage. I just wanted you to know before... She hesitated. Before this went any further, I didn't want you to think I was hiding something or lying about being Sophie's mother. Legally, I adopted her when she was 3 months old. I'm her mother on every document, every form. But the biology part, I thought you should know. Thank you for trusting me with that, Daniel said. It doesn't change anything, you know. Not about how I see you or Sophie or this. He gestured between them. If anything, it makes me respect you more. You made an impossible choice, and you've been living with the weight of it ever since. Some days it doesn't feel heavy, Maya said. Some days it just feels like life. She's my daughter, and that's that. Those are the good days. Yeah, those are the good days. They watched their daughters discover a bubble-making station, both girls immediately covered in soap suds and delighted about it. Sophie's laugh was high and bright, completely uninhibited. Emma was showing her how to make the biggest bubbles, her natural teaching instinct kicking in. They're getting along really well, Maya observed. Emma's been asking for a sibling for months, Daniel admitted. I keep trying to explain that it's just us, but she sees her friends with brothers and sisters and wants the same thing. Sophie, too. She goes to daycare 3 days a week, and all the other kids have siblings at home. She asks why our family is so small. What do you tell her? That families come in all sizes, and ours is perfectly sized for us. Maya smiled, though she's currently lobbying for a puppy as a compromise. Emma wants a cat. I keep reminding her that I'm allergic. See, that's a legitimate excuse. I'm just avoiding the pet conversation entirely. They fell into easier conversation after that, the heavy moment passing into something lighter. Maya told him about a particularly difficult client who wanted their logo redesigned 17 times. Daniel shared horror stories from parent-teacher conferences, the parents who were convinced their children were misunderstood geniuses despite clear evidence to the contrary. I had one mom accuse me of crushing her son's creative spirit because I marked him down for not following the assignment parameters, Daniel said. The assignment was to write a 5-paragraph essay on Romeo and Juliet. He turned in a rap battle between the Montagues and Capulets. That actually sounds amazing. It was amazing. It was also not a 5-paragraph essay, and he'd had 3 weeks to do the assignment correctly if he'd wanted to get creative with it. Daniel shook his head. I gave him partial credit and let him perform it for extra credit. Kid's probably going to be a famous rapper someday, and not remember the teacher who tried to teach him about thesis statements. You're a good teacher, Maya said. I can tell. How? The way you talk about your students. You're frustrated by them sometimes, but you care about them. You see them as people, not just problems to manage. She paused. It's the same way you are with Emma, patient but firm, kind but honest. I'm trying, Daniel said. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping it together, like I'm one tantrum or one bad night's sleep away from completely falling apart. That's just parenting, Maya said wryly. Controlled chaos held together by coffee and the knowledge that going to bed early isn't actually an option. Truth. They migrated through the museum with the girls who wanted to see everything and touch everything and ask approximately 7 million questions. Daniel found himself relaxing into the rhythm of it. 2 adults, 2 kids, moving through space together like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Maya was good with Emma, patient when she wanted to explain something, enthusiastic about her discoveries. And Emma seemed to like her, kept showing her things and asking her questions in that way she did when she was comfortable with someone. Sophie, for her part, had decided Daniel was safe. She held his hand when crossing between exhibits, showed him her favorite part of the butterfly garden, and asked him to lift her up to see the tall dinosaur skeleton in the main hall. You're heavy, Daniel grunted playfully as he hoisted her onto his shoulders. What has your mom been feeding you? Chicken nuggets, Sophie said seriously. And sometimes broccoli, but I don't like broccoli. Nobody really likes broccoli, Daniel confided. We just pretend to like it so we can tell kids they have to eat it. Sophie giggled. You're silly. I've been called worse. From below, Maya was watching them with an expression Daniel couldn't quite read. When he caught her eye, she quickly looked away, but not before he saw something vulnerable there. Hope, maybe, or fear, that this was too good to be real. They had lunch in the museum cafe, the girls comparing their chicken nuggets and arguing over whether chocolate or strawberry milk was superior. Daniel and Maya split a turkey sandwich and watched their daughters debate with the seriousness of philosophers. This is nice, Maya said quietly. Really nice. It is, Daniel agreed, though I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. What do you mean? I mean it feels almost too easy, like we should be more awkward or uncomfortable or something. Instead, it just feels unnatural. Maya considered this. Maybe that's how you know it's right. When it doesn't feel like work. Maybe. After lunch, they moved to the planetarium show. The girls sat between them in the dark theater, watching stars wheel overhead while a narrator explained constellations. Sophie fell asleep halfway through, her head heavy on Maya's shoulder. Emma made it to the end but was clearly fighting exhaustion, her eyes drooping as they walked back out into the afternoon light. I think we wore them out, Daniel said, watching Emma yawn hugely. Mission accomplished. Maya shifted Sophie's weight. I should probably get her home for a real nap. She's going to be impossible tonight if I don't. They walked to the parking lot together, Emma dragging her feet and clutching Mr. Trunk like a lifeline. Daniel could feel the day ending, could feel the return to their separate lives approaching, and found himself reluctant to let it happen. This was really great, he said, as they reached Maya's car. Thank you for agreeing to it. Thank you for suggesting it. Maya hesitated, then added, would you want to do this again, maybe next weekend? Absolutely. What did you have in mind? There's a park near my place with a good playground. We could do a picnic, let them run around, nothing structured. Sounds perfect. Daniel paused. Maya, thank you for telling me about Sophie, about Rachel. I know that wasn't easy. Thank you for listening, for not making it weird. She smiled. For seeing us. Always. They said goodbye, made plans to text during the week. Emma waved sleepily at Sophie, who was already unconscious in her car seat. Daniel watched them drive away, then loaded his own exhausted daughter into his car. Did you have fun, sweetheart? Uh-huh. Sophie's nice, and Maya's nice too. Emma yawned again. Can we see them again soon? Next weekend. Good. She was asleep before they left the parking lot. Daniel drove home carefully, his mind full of the day's moments. Maya's confession in the museum, Sophie's laugh in the bubble station, the easy way the four of them had moved through space together. It felt significant, though he couldn't quite articulate how. That night, after Emma was in bed, he texted Maya. Made it home okay? Yes. Sophie woke up long enough to eat dinner and immediately passed back out. I think we exhausted her. Emma's the same, already dreaming, probably about bubbles and dinosaurs. It was a really good day, Daniel. Yeah, it really was. A pause, then. I was scared to tell you. About Sophie. I'm glad you did. Honesty matters. It does. Thank you for making it easy. He wanted to say more, wanted to express the growing feeling in his chest that this was important, that she was important, but it felt too soon, too much. So instead he wrote, Get some sleep. Talk tomorrow? Tomorrow. Good night, Daniel. Good night, Maya. He set his phone down and looked again at Catherine's photo, the nightly ritual he'd maintained for 3 years. I really like her, he told the image. And I think Emma does too. Sophie's great. Reminds me of Emma at that age, all curiosity and fearlessness. He paused. I know it's fast, but it feels right. And I think you'd want me to follow that. The photo didn't answer, but he felt a sense of peace anyway. Catherine would have liked Maya, he thought, would have admired her strength, her dedication to Sophie, the way she'd stepped up when it would have been easier to step back. The following week passed in a blur of texts and phone calls. Maya sent him pictures of Sophie's latest art project, a finger painting that was mostly purple blobs, but that Sophie insisted was a portrait of Carrot. Daniel responded with Emma's spelling homework, which included the sentence, I like my new friend Sophie. She can't spell yet, Daniel texted, but the sentiment is there. Thursday night, Maya called instead of texting. Daniel was grading papers at the kitchen table, red pen in hand, when his phone rang. Hey, he said, setting down his pen. Everything okay? Everything's fine. She paused. I wanted to hear your voice. Is that weird? No, it's nice. They talked for an hour about nothing important. Her latest design project, his lesson plans, the small frustrations and joys of daily life. It was the kind of conversation he'd had with Catherine years ago, when they were first dating, when everything about the other person was fascinating and new. I should let you go, Maya finally said. It's getting late. Yeah, Sophie asleep? For the past 2 hours. She's been asking about Emma constantly. Apparently, Emma is the coolest person she's ever met. Daniel laughed. Emma's been the same way. She wants to know when we're seeing Sophie again, what Sophie likes to eat, if Sophie has seen every Disney movie ever made. Not even close, but we're working on it. Saturday then, the picnic? Saturday, Maya confirmed. I'll pack food if you bring drinks? Deal. After they hung up, Daniel found he couldn't focus on grading anymore. His mind kept drifting to Maya's voice, the easy comfort of their conversation, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes. He was falling for her, he realized. Not the desperate grab of someone lonely, but the genuine attraction of someone who recognized a kindred spirit. Saturday arrived with the same perfect weather, as if the universe was conspiring to make these meetings as ideal as possible. Daniel packed juice boxes and water bottles, along with a blanket for sitting. Emma helped, carefully selecting which snacks to bring. Do you think Sophie likes goldfish crackers? She asked seriously. I think most kids like goldfish crackers. Good, because I brought a lot. They met at the park at noon, the playground already full of children running and screaming in that particular pitch that meant pure joy. Maya had spread a blanket under a tree, Sophie already pulling at her hand to go play. Hi, Emma ran over immediately. Sophie, come see the swings. The girls took off together, and Daniel settled onto the blanket beside Maya. She'd brought an impressive spread, sandwiches, fruit, chips, cookies that looked homemade. You made cookies? Daniel asked. Sophie and I baked them last night. Half of them are slightly burnt, but they taste okay. Maya smiled. It's become our Thursday tradition, baking something, usually with more mess than actual product. That's really sweet. She likes helping, and it's something we can do together that doesn't involve screens or rushing. Maya watched Sophie and Emma take turns pushing each other on the swings. I try to have those moments with her, the ones she'll remember. I do the same thing with Emma. Friday nights are movie nights, just the two of us. She picks the movie, I make popcorn, we build a blanket fort. Daniel smiled at the memory. Last week we watched The Little Mermaid for approximately the 50th time. Sophie's current obsession is Moana. I can recite that entire movie from memory now. The ocean chose you, Daniel quoted. See? It's infectious. They fell into conversation again, that easy back and forth that had characterized their time together. Daniel found himself studying Maya when she wasn't looking, the way she pushed her hair back when she was thinking, the small scar on her left hand that he wanted to ask about but didn't, the way her whole face lit up when she smiled. He was definitely falling for her. The afternoon stretched pleasantly. They ate, they watched the girls play, they talked about everything and nothing. At one point, Sophie ran back demanding that Maya tie her shoe, and Daniel watched the gentle patience with which she knelt down and retied the laces, explaining to Sophie how to make the bunny ears even though the girl was too young to do it herself. You'll get it when you're bigger, Maya promised. When I'm 3? Maybe when you're 4, like Emma. Sophie accepted this and ran back to the playground, apparently satisfied with the timeline. Maya straightened and caught Daniel watching her. What? She asked self-consciously. Nothing, just, you're really good with her. I'm trying to be. Maya sat back down. Some days I feel like I'm failing spectacularly. She'll throw a tantrum in the grocery store and I'll think, Rachel would have handled this better. Rachel would know what to do. You don't know that, Daniel said gently. Rachel might have struggled just as much. All parents struggle. I keep this picture in my wallet, Maya said quietly, pulling out her phone and showing him a photo of 2 young women, clearly sisters, laughing at something off camera. That's Rachel and me, about 6 months before Sophie was born. We were so naive, we thought we had everything figured out. She looks like you. Everyone says that. Same smile, same terrible hair. Maya touched the screen gently. I talk to her sometimes. Tell her about Sophie's milestones, her funny moments. I don't know if that's healthy or not. I talk to Catherine's photo every night, Daniel admitted. So if it's not healthy, we're both crazy. They shared a look of understanding, of mutual recognition. They were both people living with ghosts, trying to honor the past while building something new. It was complicated and messy, and there were no guidebooks for this particular situation. Can I ask you something? Maya said, and you can tell me to back off if it's too much. Shoot, when you look at Emma, do you see Catherine, or does she feel like her own person now? Daniel considered the question carefully. Both. There are moments when she'll make an expression that's pure Catherine, or she'll laugh a certain way, and it's like seeing my wife again. But mostly she's just Emma, her own person, with her own personality and interests and way of seeing the world. He paused. Why do you ask? Because sometimes I look at Sophie and I see Rachel so clearly, it hurts. The way she tilts her head when she's confused or how she hums while she colors. And I wonder if I'm projecting, if I'm trying to keep my sister alive through her daughter instead of just letting Sophie be Sophie. I think it's probably both, Daniel said. You see Rachel because she's there, in genetics, in the ways that children mirror their parents. But that doesn't mean you're not also seeing Sophie for who she is. They can exist together. Maya nodded slowly. That makes sense. It's hard, though, trying to honor someone's memory while also moving forward. Sometimes it feels impossible. But we're doing it anyway. Yeah, we are. Emma and Sophie came running back, breathless and demanding snacks. They devoured goldfish crackers and apple slices while explaining an elaborate game they'd invented involving dragons and princesses and apparently a significant amount of sand. Daniel and Maya exchanged amused glances over their heads, that silent parent communication that said kids are weird and wonderful in equal measure. As the afternoon wore on and the sun started its descent toward evening, Daniel felt a sense of contentment he hadn't experienced in years. This, sitting in a park with Maya while their daughters played, felt like the beginning of something real, something that could last. "I should probably get Sophie home," Maya said eventually. "She's going to crash hard tonight." Emma too. Daniel started packing up the remnants of their picnic. "Same time next week?" "Actually," Maya hesitated, "I was wondering if maybe you'd want to come over for dinner during the week sometime? Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and the girls getting to play at my place." "I'd really like that." "Wednesday work?" "Wednesday's perfect." They gathered their things and their exhausted children, saying goodbye in the parking lot. As Daniel drove home with Emma already dozing in the back seat, he felt lighter than he had in months. Like the future held possibilities again, like maybe they were both brave enough to reach for them. Wednesday evening found Daniel standing outside Maya's apartment with a bottle of wine in one hand and Emma's hand in the other. His daughter was vibrating with excitement, practically bouncing on her toes as they waited for someone to answer the door. He'd spent an embarrassing amount of time getting ready, changing shirts 3 times before Emma had declared that he looked fine, Daddy. Can we go now? The door opened and Sophie appeared, still in her daycare clothes, her face lighting up when she saw Emma. "You're here! Come see my room!" The girls disappeared immediately, leaving Daniel standing in the doorway with Maya, who was wearing an apron dusted with flour and looking slightly frazzled. "Sorry," she said, pushing hair out of her face. "I meant to have everything ready, but Sophie decided to help with the garlic bread, and it turned into a whole production." She stepped back to let him in. "Come in, please, and ignore the mess." The apartment was small but warm, decorated with touches that spoke to Maya's design background. Carefully chosen colors, interesting art on the walls, furniture that was both functional and beautiful. But there were also signs of Sophie everywhere. Crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, toys in organized bins by the couch, a small table and chairs set up in the corner of the living room, clearly meant for tea parties or coloring. "It's nice," Daniel said, meaning it. "Very you." That's a polite way of saying it's chaos barely held together by throw pillows and storage solutions. Maya took the wine bottle. "Thank you for this. I'll open it as soon as I make sure nothing's burning." He followed her into the kitchen, where something was indeed simmering on the stove and the oven timer was ticking down. Maya moved efficiently between tasks, stirring sauce, checking bread, wiping down counters. Daniel found himself watching her hands, the competent way she managed multiple things at once. "Can I help with anything?" he asked. "You can set the table if you want. Plates are in that cabinet, silverware in the drawer below." Maya tasted the sauce, added more salt. "Fair warning, I'm not a great cook. This is literally one of 3 meals I can make without consulting the internet." "What are the other 2? "Scrambled eggs and grilled cheese." She grinned at him over her shoulder. "I know, very impressive culinary range." "Hey, I can barely manage box mac and cheese without burning it. You're already ahead of me." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Daniel finding dishes and napkins while Maya finished the meal. From Sophie's room came the sound of the girls playing, their voices high and happy. Daniel could hear Emma explaining something about her school, the way teachers expected them to sit still for a whole million hours. "She's exaggerating," Daniel called toward the bedroom. "It's only 45 minutes. Emma's voice floated back. "That's still really long." Maya laughed, pulling the garlic bread from the oven. "Sophie's going to start pre-K in the fall. I'm already dreading the transition." Emma cried for the first week of preschool, every single morning like I was abandoning her to wolves. Daniel arranged forks and spoons, but by week 2, she was fine. Kids adapt faster than we think. "I hope you're right. Sophie's in daycare 3 days a week now, but that's different. More play-based." Maya started plating pasta. "A real classroom with real rules feels like a huge step." "It is a huge step, but she'll be okay. You've prepared her well." Maya glanced at him, something soft in her expression. "You always know the right thing to say." "Not always. Usually I'm fumbling through and hoping I don't say something completely wrong." They called the girls for dinner, and both children came running, faces flushed from playing. Sophie had changed into a princess dress at some point, complete with plastic tiara. Emma was wearing what appeared to be a feather boa. "We're playing dress-up," Sophie announced unnecessarily. "I see that," Maya said, suppressing a smile. "Very fashionable. Now eat your dinner so you can go back to being princesses afterward." Dinner was chaotic in the way meals with small children always were. Spilled milk, rejected vegetables, lengthy debates about whether garlic bread counted as a vegetable if it had green flecks in it. But it was also warm and comfortable. The four of them crowded around Maya's small dining table, like they'd done this 100 times before. Daniel watched Maya cut Sophie's pasta into smaller pieces, watched her automatically wipe sauce from the child's chin, watched the easy intimacy of their relationship. And he saw Sophie watching him too, those dark eyes assessing, trying to figure out what he was doing in her space, in her life with her mom. "Mr. Daniel," Sophie said suddenly, her child's pronunciation turning his name into something both formal and adorable. "Do you have a house?" "I do. It's not far from here, actually." "Does Emma live there too?" "She does. Just the two of us." Sophie considered this, twirling pasta on her fork with mixed success. "Where's Emma's mommy?" The table went quiet. Daniel could feel Maya tense, could see her preparing to intervene, to redirect, but Emma answered before anyone else could. "My mommy died," she said simply. "A long time ago, when I was really little. I don't remember her much." Sophie's eyes went wide. "She died?" "Yeah, she was sick and the doctors couldn't fix her." Emma took a bite of garlic bread, apparently unbothered by the conversation. "Daddy says she's in heaven now, watching over us." "Oh, that's sad," Sophie said solemnly. Then, with the brutal honesty of children, "I don't have a daddy." "Well, I did have one, but he didn't want to be a daddy, so it's just me and Mama." Maya's face had gone pale. Daniel could see her struggling with how to handle this, whether to shut it down or let the girls talk through it themselves. He caught her eye and gave a small shake of his head. Let them work it out. "That's sad too," Emma said. "But at least we have our people who stayed. My daddy stayed, and your mama stayed." "Yeah," Sophie agreed. "The people who stay are the good ones." And just like that, with the simple wisdom that children sometimes stumbled into, they'd summed up everything their parents had been trying to articulate for weeks. The people who stay are the good ones. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, some protective wall he'd built without realizing it. Maya was blinking rapidly, clearly fighting tears. Daniel reached under the table and found her hand, squeezed gently. She squeezed back, holding on like he was an anchor in rough water. After dinner, the girls returned to their game while Daniel helped Maya clean up. They worked side by side at the sink, him washing while she dried, and the domesticity of it felt significant somehow, like they were practicing for something bigger. "I'm sorry about that," Maya said quietly. "The questions about Emma's mother, I should have prepared Sophie better." "Don't apologize. Kids are curious, and Emma's comfortable talking about it. If she wasn't, she would have changed the subject." Daniel handed her a plate. "Besides, what Sophie said about you being her mama, that wasn't scripted, was it?" "No, she's called me mama since she could talk. I never corrected her because—" Maya's voice caught. "Because that's what I am, even if Rachel should have been the one hearing it." "Rachel would be proud of you," Daniel said. "Of what you've built, how you're raising Sophie. Anyone would be." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do. Because you're doing it right, putting her first, giving her stability and love and honesty. That's what good parents do." Maya set down the dish towel and turned to face him fully. They were standing close in the small kitchen, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, could count the freckles across her nose that makeup didn't quite hide. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Something I probably shouldn't say yet because it's too soon and too much?" "You can tell me anything." "I think I'm falling for you." The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back and couldn't anymore. "And it terrifies me because what if this doesn't work? What if Sophie gets attached and then you leave? What if Emma gets attached and I screw it up somehow? What if we're building something that's going to collapse and hurt everyone involved?" Daniel reached up and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "What if it doesn't collapse? What if we're building something real and lasting and good?" "I don't know how to trust that." Neither do I. But I'm willing to try if you are. He paused. Because I'm falling for you too, Maya. And yeah, it's scary. Yeah, there are a million ways this could go wrong, but there are also ways it could go right. And I think we owe it to ourselves, to all four of us, to find out which one it is. She stared at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because she leaned forward and kissed him, soft and tentative and perfect. Daniel kissed her back, his hand sliding into her hair, pulling her closer. It was their first kiss, and it tasted like possibility and hope and the faint sweetness of garlic bread. They broke apart when they heard giggling from the living room. Both girls were peeking around the corner, hands over their mouths, eyes sparkling with mischief. "You kissed!" Sophie shrieked, dissolving into laughter. "That means you like each other," Emma added with authority. "That's what happens in movies." Maya's face was bright red, but she was smiling. "Okay, you two. Show's over. Go play." The girls scampered off, whispering and giggling. Daniel and Maya looked at each other and started laughing too, the tension broken by their tiny audience. "Well," Maya said, "I guess that's out in the open now." "I guess so." Daniel pulled her close again, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "For what it's worth, I don't regret it." "Good. Neither do I." They finished cleaning up and joined the girls in the living room, where an elaborate princess scenario was playing out involving Carrot and Mr. Trunk as royal advisors. Daniel settled onto the couch beside Maya, their shoulders touching, and watched their daughters play. This was what he'd been missing, he realized. Not just romance or companionship, but this. Family. The easy comfort of shared space, shared time, shared life. The evening wound down gradually. Sophie started rubbing her eyes around 8, and Maya declared at bedtime despite Sophie's protests that she wasn't tired at all. "Yes, you are," Maya said, scooping up the yawning child. "Say goodnight to Emma and Mr. Daniel." "Good night," Sophie mumbled, already half asleep on Maya's shoulder. "Emma, come back soon?" "Tomorrow?" Emma asked hopefully, looking at Daniel. "Not tomorrow, sweetheart. We have school." Daniel stood. "But soon." He helped Emma gather her things, the feather boa she'd borrowed, Mr. Trunk, who'd been carefully forgotten under a pillow, while Maya put Sophie to bed. When she emerged from the bedroom, she looked tired but content. "She went down fast," Maya reported. "All that playing wore her out." "Emma's going to pass out in the car." Daniel pulled on his jacket. "Thank you for tonight, the dinner, the company, all of it." "Thank you for coming." Maya walked them to the door. "And for what you said, about building something good." "I meant every word." She kissed him again, quick and sweet, then knelt down to Emma's level. "You're welcome here any time, okay? You and your dad both." Emma hugged her impulsively. "I like you. You're nice and you make my daddy smile." Maya's eyes went bright with tears again. "I like you too, sweetheart. Very much." The drive home was quiet, Emma fighting sleep in the back seat while Daniel replayed the evening in his mind. Maya's confession, their kiss, the girls' easy acceptance of them as a unit. It felt fast, maybe too fast, but it also felt right in a way that nothing had felt right since Catherine died. "Daddy?" Emma's sleepy voice came from the back. "Are you and Maya boyfriend and girlfriend now?" "Maybe. Would that be okay with you?" "Uh-huh. Sophie's nice, and Maya makes good spaghetti." Emma yawned. "Will they come live with us?" "Whoa. Slow down. We're just getting to know each other." "But eventually?" Daniel thought about how to answer, about managing expectations without closing doors. "Maybe eventually, if everyone agrees it's a good idea." "I think it's a good idea," Emma announced. "Sophie needs a big sister and I need a little sister, and you need someone besides me to talk to." "I talk to other people." "Yeah, but you like talking to Maya best, I can tell." Daniel smiled at his daughter's perception in the rearview mirror. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" "I know," Emma said without modesty. "That's why I'm in the advanced reading group." By the time they got home, Emma was fully asleep. Daniel carried her inside, got her ready for bed in that half-conscious state kids could achieve, and tucked her in with Mr. Trunk. He stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him like always. Every decision he made affected her. Every relationship he pursued became part of her story too. But Emma seemed happy. More than happy. Excited. She'd bonded with Sophie, accepted Maya easily, and was already planning a future that included all four of them. Maybe kids knew something adults forgot, Daniel thought. Maybe they understood instinctively when something was worth the risk. His phone buzzed as he was getting ready for bed. Maya. Sophie keeps talking about Emma. I think we've created a monster. Daniel smiled and replied, Emma's the same, already planning their next play date. They're going to run our lives, aren't they? Absolutely. But I'm okay with that if you are. I'm more than okay with it. A pause, then another message. Thank you for tonight. For being patient with me, for understanding why this is hard. Thank you for taking the risk. I know it wasn't easy. Nothing worth having is easy. My sister used to say that. She sounds like she was smart. She was. I wish she could have met you. I think she would have liked you. Daniel looked at Catherine's photo on his nightstand, then back at his phone. I wish Catherine could have met you too. I think they both would have wanted us to be happy. Yeah, I think you're right. They said goodnight, and Daniel set his phone down, feeling that strange mixture of grief and hope that had become familiar over the past few weeks. He was moving forward, but he wasn't leaving Catherine behind. She was still part of him, still part of Emma, still loved and remembered. But there was room for Maya too, for Sophie, for something new built on the foundation of everything they'd survived. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. Dinners at each other's places, weekend outings with the girls, phone calls that stretched late into the night after the children were asleep. They were building something deliberately, carefully, both of them hyper-aware of the stakes involved. This wasn't just dating. This was 4 lives potentially intertwining, and neither of them took that lightly. Daniel met Maya's best friend Jennifer, who hugged him and whispered, "Don't hurt her," with enough steel in her voice that he knew she meant it. Maya met Emma's grandmother Margaret, who studied her carefully before announcing, "You'll do," and offering to babysit whenever they needed. Their people were circling, assessing, protecting. It was uncomfortable and necessary, and strangely reassuring. Jennifer threatened me, Daniel reported to Maya, after one double date where Jennifer had barely let him out of her sight. Margaret interrogated me about my intentions, Maya countered, like I was a teenage boy picking up her granddaughter for prom. They care about us. I know. It's sweet and terrifying in equal measure. 6 weeks after their first date, Daniel invited Maya and Sophie to dinner at his place. He'd made a genuine effort to clean, even though he knew Maya wouldn't judge him for the normal chaos of single parenting. Emma had helped, insisting that everything be perfect for Sophie. They arrived promptly at 6, Sophie carrying a drawing she'd made for Emma. 2 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. Emma immediately declared it the best picture ever and hung it on the refrigerator with ceremony. Dinner was Daniel's attempt at chicken stir-fry, which came out slightly overcooked but edible. They ate at his kitchen table, the girls chattering about their respective days while the adults listened and interjected when necessary. Afterwards, Maya helped with dishes while the girls played in Emma's room. "Your place is really nice," Maya said, drying a plate. "Very organized." "That's the teacher in me. Everything has a system." Daniel gestured around the kitchen. Lunches packed the night before, clothes laid out, backpack by the door. If I don't have routines, everything falls apart. I'm more chaotic. Everything happens last minute, and somehow we usually make it work. Maya smiled, though Sophie started asking why we can't be organized like Mr. Daniel. Sorry about that. Don't be. She could use some structure. I could use some structure. Maya set down the dish towel. Actually, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. Something in her tone made Daniel pay attention. Okay. We've been doing this for almost 2 months now, seeing each other, integrating the girls, building toward something. Maya took a breath. And I need to know what we're building toward, because I can't do casual, Daniel, not with Sophie involved. She's already attached to you and Emma, and if this isn't going somewhere real, I need to know now before she gets hurt. Daniel had been expecting this conversation, had been preparing for it. It's going somewhere real, he said firmly. I'm not doing casual either. I'm in this, Maya, completely. What does that mean, though? Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Are we partners? Are we... We're whatever we want to be, Daniel interrupted. I want us to be together. Officially, seriously, all of it. I want to keep doing this, dinners and weekends and building a life that includes all four of us. And eventually, when we're both ready, I want more than that. More like what? More like moving in together, like being a family, really a family. Like, he stopped, realizing he was getting ahead of himself. Sorry, that's probably too much, too fast. No, Maya said quickly. It's not too much. It's what I want too. I just needed to hear you say it. Needed to know we're on the same page. We're on the same page, Daniel confirmed. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. I love you, Maya. I know it's fast and I know it's complicated, but I love you. And I love Sophie. And I want us to figure out how to make this work. Maya looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I love you too, so much it scares me. Love is scary, especially for people like us who know how badly it can hurt. Daniel kissed her forehead. But it's also worth it. You're worth it. They stood there in his kitchen, holding each other, and Daniel felt something settle into place. This was right. Terrifying and uncertain and absolutely right. From Emma's room came a crash, followed by Sophie's wail and Emma's frantic, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Daniel and Maya broke apart and rushed toward the sound, finding Sophie on the floor crying while Emma hovered nearby looking guilty. What happened? Maya asked, kneeling beside Sophie. We were dancing and I accidentally knocked her over, Emma said, near tears herself. I didn't mean to. It's okay, sweetheart. Daniel checked Sophie over quickly. No blood, nothing broken, just a scared and startled toddler. Accidents happen. Maya scooped Sophie into her arms, murmuring comfort. The crying subsided quickly, more shock than actual pain. Emma was still upset, though, her face crumpling. I hurt her, Emma sobbed. I hurt Sophie, and now she won't want to be my friend anymore. That's not true, Daniel said, pulling Emma close. Sophie knows it was an accident. Friends forgive accidents. Sophie lifted her head from Maya's shoulder. I'm okay, Emma. Don't cry. But I made you fall. It's okay. I fall lots. Sophie wiggled down from Maya's arms and went to Emma, patting her arm awkwardly. We're still friends. Emma hugged her fiercely. I'm really, really sorry. I know. It's okay. Crisis averted, the girls returned to playing, more carefully this time. Daniel and Maya retreated to the living room, both of them slightly shaky from the adrenaline spike. Welcome to parenting, Daniel said wryly. Never a dull moment. I thought my heart was going to explode. Maya leaned against him. The sound of her crying still gets me every time. Yeah, that doesn't go away. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. But they're okay. They're resilient. They sat together, listening to the girls play, and Daniel thought about what Maya had asked, where they were building toward. The truth was, he didn't know exactly. There was no roadmap for blending families, no instruction manual for making this work. But he knew they'd figure it out together, one day at a time, one crisis, and one celebration at a time. Maya, he said quietly, there's something else I need to tell you, something I've been putting off because I wasn't sure how you'd react. She tensed slightly. Okay. Emma's been asking about adoption, about making families official. Daniel chose his words carefully. She wants to know if Sophie could be her real sister someday. And I told her that was something all four of us would have to decide together, but that I hoped the answer would be yes. Maya turned to look at him, eyes wide. You want to adopt Sophie? I want us to be a family. However that looks, whatever that means legally. He paused. But only if that's what you want too. I'm not trying to take her from you or diminish your role as her mother. I just want to make official what's already happening, that we're in this together, all of us. Daniel, Maya's voice broke. That's the most incredible thing anyone's ever said to me. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Eventually, when we're ready, that's absolutely a yes. She kissed him, deep and certain. I want that too. All of it. They held each other while their daughters played in the next room, two broken families finding a way to become whole again. It wouldn't be easy, Daniel knew. There would be challenges and adjustments and moments of doubt, but they would face them together, and that made all the difference. Later, after Maya and Sophie had gone home and Emma was asleep, Daniel sat with Catherine's photo one last time. "I told Maya I loved her tonight," he said, "and I told her I wanted us to be a family. I hope that's okay." He paused. "I think you'd like her. She's strong and brave, and she loves Sophie the way you loved Emma, the way I still love you." His voice caught. "I'm not replacing you. You'll always be Emma's mother, always be part of our story. But there's room for Maya, too. Room for all of us to love and be loved." He set the photo down gently and went to bed. His last thought before sleep that tomorrow he'd wake up and continue building this new life, this chosen family, this second chance at happiness that none of them had expected, but all of them deserved. The conversation about becoming a family shifted something fundamental between them. What had been careful and tentative became certain. What had been possibility became plan. They still moved slowly, still honored the complexity of merging two households, two histories, two children who deserved stability above all else. But now they moved with purpose, with the shared understanding that this wasn't just dating, this was building a future. 3 months into their relationship, Maya's lease came up for renewal. She'd been in that apartment since Sophie was 6 months old, since the terrifying early days of sudden motherhood and crushing grief. It was familiar, safe, but also small and expensive, and not really big enough for a growing child who needed space to play and explore. "My landlord's raising the rent again," Maya told Daniel over the phone one Thursday night. 15% this time. I can barely afford what I'm paying now." Daniel had been grading papers at his kitchen table, but he set down his red pen and gave her his full attention. "That's steep. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Look for something cheaper, I guess, but everything in Seattle is expensive, and I need to stay close to Sophie's daycare and my clients, and..." She sighed, the weight of it audible. "Sorry, I'm just stressed." "Don't apologize." Daniel hesitated, then took the leap. "What if you didn't look for another apartment? What if you moved in here instead?" Silence on the other end of the line. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the significance of what he just suggested hanging in the air between them. "Daniel," Maya finally said, her voice careful, "that's a huge step." "I know, but we've been talking about eventually, about someday. What if eventually is now?" He stood up, started pacing his kitchen. "I have 3 bedrooms. Emma and Sophie could share, or we could convert my office into Sophie's room. There's a yard, a good school district, and you wouldn't have to worry about rent increases or lease renewals. You could save money, build your business, have actual space." "It's not about the logistics," Maya said quietly. "It's about whether we're ready, whether the girls are ready." "I think we are. But if you're not, that's okay too. I'm not trying to pressure you." "You're not pressuring me. You're offering me something I want, but I'm scared to take." He heard her take a shaky breath. "Can I think about it? Can we talk to the girls first, make sure they're okay with it?" "Of course, take all the time you need." They hung up, and Daniel immediately second-guessed himself. Had he pushed too hard? Was it too soon? But then he thought about Maya struggling to make rent, about Sophie growing up in that cramped apartment, about the 4 of them living separately when they spent most of their time together anyway. It made sense practically. The question was whether it made sense emotionally. That weekend, they sat the girls down for what Daniel had started thinking of as the family meeting. Emma and Sophie were on the couch, confused about why the adults looked so serious. Maya and Daniel sat in chairs facing them, trying to figure out how to explain a concept that even they were still processing. "So," Daniel started, then stopped. "How did you explain cohabitation to a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old? "Emma, Sophie, we wanted to talk to you about something important." "Are you getting married?" Emma asked bluntly. "Not yet," Maya said, her face coloring. "But we are talking about living together, all 4 of us, in one house." Sophie's eyes went wide. "Like a sleepover?" "Kind of like a permanent sleepover," Daniel said. "Maya and Sophie would move into our house, and we'd all live together as a family." Emma's face lit up. "Really? Sophie would be here all the time?" "All the time," Maya confirmed. "We'd share a house, share meals, share everything. How do you feel about that?" "I think it's the best idea ever." Emma was practically vibrating with excitement. "Sophie, We could play every day, and you could sleep in my room, and we could have bunk beds, and Emma, slow down, Daniel said, laughing despite himself. Sophie, what do you think? Would you want to live here with Emma and me? Sophie looked at Maya, seeking guidance. Would you be here too, Mama? I'd be here too, baby. We'd all be together. Okay. Sophie nodded, apparently satisfied with this simple explanation. Can I bring Carrot? Of course you can bring Carrot. Then, okay. And just like that, with the easy acceptance of children who hadn't yet learned to complicate things, the decision was made. The girls were in. Now it was just up to the adults to follow through. Maya gave her landlord notice the following week. They had 60 days to make the transition, 60 days to figure out how to merge two households into one. It should have felt overwhelming, but instead it felt right, like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. The logistics were complicated. Maya had furniture that needed to fit into Daniel's house, belongings that needed to be sorted and combined and occasionally discarded. They spent weekends going through boxes, deciding what to keep and what to donate. Daniel cleaned out his office to make room for Sophie's bedroom, painting the walls a soft lavender that she'd picked out herself. I want butterflies, Sophie announced, studying paint samples with the seriousness of an interior designer. Lots of butterflies. We can do butterflies, Maya promised. We'll get some decals for the walls. Emma helped paint, getting more on herself than the walls, but having the time of her life. The girls were constantly underfoot, offering suggestions and making elaborate plans for how they'd arrange their shared space. Daniel and Maya worked around them, stealing moments to exchange glances that said, "Can you believe we're doing this? And I can't wait for this to be our life." Margaret came by one afternoon to survey the changes, walking through the house with the critical eye of someone who'd known it when Catherine was alive. Daniel watched her take in the new paint, the rearranged furniture, the signs of Maya and Sophie everywhere. "It's different," Margaret finally said, not unkindly, but good different. "You're okay with this?" Daniel asked, needing to hear it explicitly. "I'm more than okay with it." Margaret turned to face him. "Catherine would want you to be happy, Daniel. She would want Emma to have a full life, to know what a loving family looks like. Maya's good for you, good for Emma. I see the way you are together, lighter, happier. That's what my daughter would have wanted." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "Thank you. That means everything. Just promise me Emma won't forget her mother." "Never. We talk about Catherine all the time. Emma knows who her mother was, what she meant to us. Maya knows that too." "Then I'm happy for you." Margaret hugged him, fierce and brief. "All of you." 2 weeks before the move, Daniel took Maya to meet his parents. They lived an hour outside Seattle, and the drive gave them time to prepare, or rather, for Daniel to warn Maya about his mother's particular brand of well-meaning intensity. "She's going to ask inappropriate questions," Daniel said as they drove. "About your intentions, about Sophie's father, about whether you're good enough for Emma. Just try not to take it personally." "I'll try," Maya said, though she looked nervous. "What about your dad?" "Dad's easy. He'll make bad jokes and ask about your work and probably fall asleep halfway through dinner." The reality was both better and worse than Daniel had described. His mother, Patricia, greeted them warmly, but immediately zeroed in on Sophie with an intensity that made the toddler hide behind Maya's legs. "So this is the little one," Patricia said, crouching down to Sophie's level. "Aren't you precious? How old are you, sweetheart?" 2.5, Sophie whispered. "Almost 3, Maya added. "Her birthday's next month." "And where's her father?" Patricia asked, straightening up. The question was directed at Maya, but felt more like an accusation. "Not in the picture," Maya said evenly. "It's just been Sophie and me since she was 6 months old." "How unfortunate." Patricia's tone suggested she thought it was more than unfortunate, possibly scandalous. "Well, come in. Dinner's almost ready." Daniel caught Maya's eye and mouthed sorry. She gave him a look that said, "We'll talk about this later," but followed Patricia inside, keeping Sophie close. Dinner was exactly as awkward as Daniel had feared. His father, Tom, tried to keep things light with questions about Maya's design work and compliments about the wine she'd brought. But Patricia kept circling back to pointed questions about their relationship timeline, about whether they were moving too fast, about whether they'd considered how this would affect Emma. We've considered everything, Daniel finally said, his patience wearing thin. We're not rushing into this blindly, Mom. We're building a family. Emma already has a family, Patricia said. She has you and she has us, and she has the memory of her mother. She needs whatever makes her happy and healthy and loved, Daniel interrupted. And Maya and Sophie do that. You'd see it if you'd stop looking for problems. The table went silent. Tom coughed awkwardly. Sophie, sensing the tension, started to whimper. Maya immediately scooped her up, murmuring comfort. I think we should go, Maya said quietly. Thank you for dinner, but it's getting late and Sophie needs to be home. Maya, wait! Patricia started, but Maya was already gathering their things. They left quickly, Sophie crying now, Emma confused and upset. The drive home was tense and silent except for Sophie's sniffles from the back seat. When they pulled into Daniel's driveway, Maya wouldn't look at him. I'm sorry, Daniel said. My mother was completely out of line. She's protecting her granddaughter. I get it. Maya's voice was flat. She doesn't think I'm good enough for you, for Emma. And maybe she's right. Don't say that. Don't let her get in your head. She's not in my head, Daniel. She's saying out loud what I already worry about. Maya finally looked at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. What if we are moving too fast? What if this is a mistake? It's not a mistake. Daniel reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Maya, please, don't let one bad dinner change everything. I need to think. She got out of the car, gathering Sophie, who had finally cried herself to sleep. I'll call you tomorrow. Daniel watched her drive away, his stomach in knots. He carried Emma inside, got her ready for bed despite her questions about why Grandma Patricia had been mean to Maya, why Maya had looked so sad, why grown-ups had to be so complicated. I don't know, sweetheart, Daniel admitted. Sometimes people say things they shouldn't, and it hurts even when they don't mean it to. Is Maya still going to move in with us? I hope so. Daniel tucked her in. But we'll have to wait and see. Maya didn't call the next day, or the day after that. Daniel gave her space, sent a few texts that went unanswered, tried not to panic. On the third day, Jennifer called him. What did you do? She demanded without preamble. My mother was horrible to her at dinner, but I defended Maya. I told my mother she was wrong. I don't know what else I could have done. Your mother told Maya she'd never be Emma's real mother, that she was trying to replace someone irreplaceable. Jennifer's voice was hard. Maya's been crying for 3 days. She thinks you'll eventually realize your mother is right, that she's not good enough, that she's just some placeholder until you find someone better. Daniel felt sick. That's not true. None of it's true. Then you need to tell her that, loudly and clearly, and in a way she'll actually believe. Jennifer paused. Maya's been abandoned and rejected so many times, Daniel. By her parents when Rachel got pregnant, by Sophie's father before Sophie was even born, by every guy who couldn't handle the reality of her life. She's terrified you're going to be another person who leaves when things get hard. I'm not leaving. I love her. Then prove it. Jennifer hung up, and Daniel sat with his phone in his hand, trying to figure out how to fix this. He couldn't undo what his mother had said, couldn't erase the doubt that had been planted. But he could show Maya that his mother was wrong, that Maya was exactly who he wanted, who he and Emma needed. He called Margaret first, explained the situation. She was furious on Maya's behalf, promised to have words with Patricia. Then he called his boss, explained he needed to take a personal day. Finally, he texted Maya. Please don't make any decisions yet. Give me a chance to show you something. Can I come over tomorrow? The reply came an hour later. Okay. The next morning, Daniel dropped Emma at school with promises that everything would be okay, then drove to Maya's apartment. She answered the door looking exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. Sophie was at daycare, the apartment quiet and too empty. Thank you for seeing me, Daniel said. I almost didn't. Maya stepped back to let him in. I keep thinking maybe it would be easier to end this now, before we're in too deep, before the girls are more attached. We're already in too deep. All of us. Daniel took her hands, held them even when she tried to pull away. Maya, listen to me. My mother was wrong, completely, totally, horribly wrong. You're not a placeholder or a substitute or second best. You're the person I want to build a life with, the person I love. Your mother's going to be in Emma's life forever, Maya said. She's always going to see me as the woman who's trying to replace her daughter. Then she's going to have to get over it, because you're not going anywhere. Daniel pulled Maya closer. I talked to Margaret this morning, Catherine's mother. And you know what she said? She said Catherine would have loved you, would have been grateful that someone like you came into Emma's life, into our life. That's what matters, Maya. Not my mother's narrow-minded opinions, but what's actually good for this family we're building. I'm scared, Maya whispered. I'm so scared this is going to fall apart. Me too. Every single day I'm scared. Scared I'm going to screw this up. Scared you're going to realize you deserve better. Scared something will happen to break what we're building. Daniel tilted her face up to look at him. But I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear win and missing out on this. On us. On the life we could have together. Maya's tears spilled over. What if it doesn't work? What if it does? Daniel wiped her tears gently. We can't know the future, Maya. We can't guarantee perfect, but we can choose each other anyway. We can choose to be brave. I don't feel brave. You are, though. You've been brave your whole life, brave enough to take in a baby when you were barely an adult yourself, brave enough to love Sophie when it would have been easier to let her go, brave enough to try dating again even though you'd been hurt before. He kissed her forehead. Be brave enough for this, too. For us. Maya was quiet for a long moment, her face pressed against his chest, his arms around her. Daniel could feel her heart beating, could feel the tension slowly leaving her body. Okay, she finally said. Okay. I'm choosing this. Choosing us. Yeah? Yeah. She looked up at him, her face blotchy but smiling. But if your mother says one more terrible thing to me, I'm going to tell her exactly where she can shove her opinions. Daniel laughed, relief flooding through him. Fair enough, though Margaret's probably already handled that for you. They spent the rest of the morning talking through everything, the fears and doubts, the hopes and plans, the reality that blending families was going to be messy and complicated and sometimes painful. But they came through it more certain than before, more committed to making this work despite the obstacles. The move happened 2 weeks later on a Saturday that dawned clear and warm. Jennifer showed up with coffee and donuts, Margaret arrived with cleaning supplies and organizational bins, and even Tom came to help lift heavy furniture, pointedly not mentioning Patricia, who'd been uninvited after what Margaret described as a very frank conversation. She'll come around, Tom said quietly to Daniel as they carried a dresser up the stairs. Your mother just needs time to adjust to change. She needs to adjust her attitude, Daniel said bluntly. Maya's part of this family now. If Mom can't accept that, she's going to miss out on Emma's life. I know. I told her the same thing. Tom set down his end of the dresser. For what it's worth, I like Maya. She's good for you, good for Emma. Your mother will see that eventually. The house slowly transformed as boxes were unpacked and furniture was arranged. Sophie's room came together with its lavender walls and butterfly decals, her small bed positioned under the window where she could see the backyard. Maya's clothes joined Daniel's in the master bedroom closet, her toiletries taking up space in the bathroom they'd now share. Her artwork went up on the walls, her books filled the empty shelves, her presence seeped into every corner until the house that had been Daniel's became theirs. Emma and Sophie were delighted with everything, running between rooms and claiming spaces as their own. They set up a reading corner in the living room, organized their stuffed animals in an elaborate hierarchy in Sophie's room, and made elaborate plans for the backyard which they insisted needed a swing set immediately. By evening, the house was chaos, half-unpacked boxes everywhere, furniture in transitional locations. Exhausted adults collapsed on the couch while the girls played. Jennifer ordered pizza, and they ate sitting on the floor because the dining table was covered in kitchen items still waiting to be put away. Welcome home, Daniel said to Maya, raising his paper plate in a toast. Home, Maya repeated, testing the word. Then she smiled, genuine and bright. Yeah, home. After everyone left and the girls were finally asleep, Sophie in her new room, Emma in hers, Daniel and Maya stood in their bedroom, looking at the boxes still to be unpacked, the life still to be organized. We really did this, Maya said softly. We really did. Daniel wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. How does it feel? Terrifying. Exciting, right. She turned in his arms. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for being brave enough to try again. He kissed her, soft and slow and full of promise. I love you, Maya Lewis. I love you too, Daniel Carter. She paused. Though I guess I should get used to thinking of us as the Carter family now. Or the Lewis Carter family. Or the Carter-Lewis family. We can figure out the details later. Daniel pulled her closer. Right now, I just want to appreciate that you're here, that this is happening, that we're building something real. They stood together in the semi-darkness, surrounded by the evidence of their merged lives, and felt the full weight of what they'd chosen. It wouldn't be easy. There would be adjustments and arguments and moments of doubt, but they'd face them together, four people who'd found each other against the odds and decided that love was worth the risk. Later, as Daniel was drifting off to sleep with Maya warm beside him, he heard Sophie's door open and small footsteps in the hallway. He started to get up, but Maya was already moving, her maternal instincts kicking in automatically. What's wrong, baby? He heard her whisper in the hallway. I had a bad dream, Sophie's small voice replied. Can I sleep with you? Of course. Come on. Maya led Sophie back to their room, tucking the toddler between them in the bed. Sophie immediately curled against her mother, thumb in her mouth, breathing already evening out toward sleep. Daniel reached across her small body to take Maya's hand, and they lay there like that, a family, imperfect and real and chosen. In the morning, Emma found them that way and immediately demanded equal space, climbing into the bed with Mr. Trunk and wedging herself between Daniel and Sophie. The four of them barely fit, and it was uncomfortable and slightly ridiculous, but it was also perfect. This was their family now, messy and complicated and absolutely right. As the weeks passed, they settled into rhythms and routines. Morning chaos of getting everyone ready, evening rituals of dinner and homework and bedtime stories. They learned each other's habits and quirks, learned how to navigate disagreements and divide responsibilities. Maya set up her design studio in the spare room, taking calls while Sophie played nearby. Daniel's grading papers spread across the dining table while the girls did crafts beside him. It wasn't always smooth. There were arguments about parenting styles, about money, about whose turn it was to do dishes. There were moments when the girls fought and made everyone miserable, when old grief surfaced unexpectedly, when the weight of their blended family felt overwhelming. But there were also moments of pure joy. Sophie's third birthday party in their backyard, Emma teaching Sophie to ride a bike, family movie nights where they all piled on the couch. Maya's design business growing as she had more stability to take on bigger projects. Daniel coaching Emma's soccer team with Sophie as the team's unofficial mascot. They were building something lasting, something real. And every day, despite the challenges, they chose each other again. That was what made them a family, not the legal documents or the shared address, but the daily decision to stay, to love, to show up for each other, no matter what. 6 months after Maya and Sophie moved in, Daniel woke up one Saturday morning with absolute clarity about what he wanted to do next. Maya was still asleep beside him, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one hand resting protectively near Sophie, who'd crawled into their bed sometime around 3 in the morning. Emma was sprawled at the foot of the bed, having joined them an hour later when she'd heard voices and didn't want to miss out. Their bed was crowded and uncomfortable, and Daniel wouldn't change a single thing about it. He slipped out carefully, trying not to wake anyone, and retrieved the small velvet box he'd hidden in the back of his sock drawer 3 weeks ago. He'd bought the ring on impulse after watching Maya help Emma with a particularly difficult homework assignment, the patience and love she showed his daughter making his chest ache with certainty. This was it. This was his family, and he wanted to make it official. But first, there was something else he needed to do. Daniel drove across town to the cemetery where Catherine was buried, something he'd done less and less frequently over the past year, but still felt compelled to do for this particular conversation. The morning was cool and misty, the grass wet beneath his feet as he walked to her headstone. "Hi," he said, sitting down cross-legged in front of the marble marker. "Sorry it's been a while. Life's been busy." He paused, organizing his thoughts. "I'm going to ask Maya to marry me, probably today if I can work up the courage. And I needed to come here first, needed to tell you." A bird called somewhere in the trees above, the only sound in the quiet morning. I love her, Catherine. Not the same way I loved you. Nothing could ever be exactly the same. But I love her completely. She's brilliant and fierce, and she loves our daughter like her own. And Sophie, he smiled. Sophie's amazing. You would have adored her. She's got Emma's confidence, but with this gentle kindness that just floors me sometimes. Daniel pulled out the ring box, opened it to look at the simple diamond solitaire. I wanted you to know that this doesn't diminish what we had. You were my first love, Emma's mother, and you'll always be part of our story. But there's room for Maya too, room for new love without erasing old love. I think you'd want that for us. I hope you'd want that. He sat there for a while longer, telling Catherine about the girls' latest adventures, about Maya's biggest client signing on for a long-term contract, about the swing set they'd finally installed in the backyard. It felt right, including her in these moments, even though she was gone. She was Emma's mother. She deserved to know how her daughter was thriving. When he finally drove home, he found the house awake and chaotic. Maya was making pancakes while Sophie and Emma argued over whether chocolate chips or blueberries were superior toppings. The kitchen smelled like coffee and maple syrup and home. There you are, Maya said, looking up with a smile. Where'd you go? Just had an errand to run. Daniel kissed her cheek, then kissed the tops of both girls' heads. How are my favorite people this morning? Hungry, Emma announced, and Sophie's being ridiculous about blueberries. Blueberries are healthy, Sophie insisted with the moral superiority only a 3-year-old could achieve. Mama said so. Chocolate chips make you happy, Emma countered, and being happy is important too. Both are valid arguments, Daniel said diplomatically. How about we do half and half? The girls considered this compromise and accepted it with the gravity of diplomats negotiating a peace treaty. Maya caught Daniel's eye and smiled, that shared moment of parental amusement that had become one of his favorite things about their life together. After breakfast, Daniel suggested they all go to the park. It was the same park where he and Maya had their second date, where they'd watched their daughters meet for the first time and decide to be friends. It felt appropriate somehow to come full circle back to where this had all begun. The girls ran ahead to the playground while Daniel and Maya followed more slowly, hands linked. The park was busy with weekend families, the air filled with children's laughter and the smell of fresh-cut grass. Daniel's heart was pounding, the ring box heavy in his jacket pocket. You're quiet, Maya observed. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, Daniel said truthfully. I'm just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am, how we both are. He stopped walking, turned to face her. Maya, can we sit for a minute? They found their old bench, the one where they'd sat that rainy first night, and talked about grief and single parenthood and second chances. The girls were visible on the playground, Emma pushing Sophie on the swings, both of them shrieking with joy. I went to see Catherine this morning, Daniel said, at the cemetery. Maya's hand tightened in his. Oh, is everything okay? More than okay. I needed to talk to her about something important. He took a breath, tried to organize the words he'd been rehearsing all morning. These past 6 months living together have been the best of my life. Watching you with Emma, watching Sophie become part of our family, building this life with you, it's everything I didn't know I needed. Daniel, let me finish, he said gently. I know we've talked about the future in abstract terms, about adoption, about making things official, but I don't want to keep waiting for the perfect moment because I've learned that there's no such thing. There's just now and what we choose to do with it. He pulled out the ring box, and Maya's eyes went wide. Around them, the park continued its Saturday rhythm. But Daniel only saw her, the woman who'd walked into that cafe carrying a toddler and changed everything. Maya Lewis, you are the bravest person I know. You took on motherhood overnight. You built a business from nothing. You opened your heart again, even though you'd been hurt so many times before. You're an incredible mother, an amazing partner, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you're loved. He opened the box. Will you marry me? Maya's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Yes, she said, her voice breaking. Yes, absolutely yes. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then pulled her close and kissed her while scattered applause broke out from nearby parents who'd been watching. When they broke apart, they found Emma and Sophie standing right in front of them, having abandoned the playground to investigate what their parents were doing. "Did you ask her?" Emma demanded. "Did she say yes?" "She said yes," Daniel confirmed. Emma whooped and threw her arms around Maya. "We're going to be a real family now, an official family." Sophie looked confused, turning to Maya. "What's happening, Mama?" "Daniel asked me to marry him, baby. That means we're all going to be a family together, with a wedding and everything." "Like a princess wedding?" Sophie's eyes lit up. "With a dress?" "Probably with a dress," Maya said, laughing through her tears. "Can I be a flower girl?" Emma asked. "Sophie and I can both be flower girls, and we can wear matching dresses and—" "Slow down," Daniel said, but he was grinning. "We just got engaged 5 minutes ago. We haven't planned anything yet." "But we will," Emma insisted, "and it's going to be perfect." They spent the rest of the morning at the park, the girls playing while Daniel and Maya sat together, Maya's hand constantly moving to touch the ring like she needed to confirm it was real. They called their people. Jennifer screamed so loud, Maya had to hold the phone away from her ear. Margaret cried happy tears and immediately started offering to help with wedding planning. Tom congratulated them warmly and promised to work on Patricia. "She's coming around," Tom said. "Slowly, but she'll get there." "She doesn't have to," Maya said quietly after they hung up. "I'm not waiting for her approval to live my life." "I know, but I hope she does come around for Emma's sake." Daniel squeezed her hand. "Either way, we're doing this. We're getting married, and we're being a family, and we're not letting anyone make us feel like we have to justify our choices." That evening, after the girls were asleep, Daniel and Maya sat in the backyard on the swing set they'd installed, pushing gently back and forth in the cooling air. Maya's head rested on Daniel's shoulder, his arm around her waist, both of them processing the enormity of what they'd committed to. "I need to tell you something," Maya said quietly. "Something I've been putting off because I wasn't sure how you'd react." Daniel felt a flutter of anxiety. "Okay. I want to legally change Sophie's last name to Carter when we get married, and I want you to formally adopt her." Maya sat up to look at him. "Not because I think she needs your name to belong, but because I want her to have the same name as her sister. I want there to be no question that we're all family." "Maya, I would be honored to adopt Sophie, more than honored." Daniel's throat was tight. "She's already my daughter in every way that matters. Making it legal is just paperwork." "There's more," Maya said. "I want to tell her the truth. About Rachel, about how she came to be mine. She's getting older, asking more questions. She deserves to know her story." "When were you thinking?" "Soon, before the wedding, so she understands what's happening, why we're all choosing each other." Maya's voice wavered. "I'm scared she won't understand, or that she'll feel like I lied to her." "She won't," Daniel said with certainty. "She'll understand that you loved her enough to become her mother when she needed one most. That's not lying, that's love." They decided to tell Sophie the following weekend, giving themselves time to figure out how to explain something so complicated to a 3-year-old. Daniel consulted Emma's school counselor, who gave him resources on age-appropriate ways to discuss adoption and family diversity. Maya called a family therapist who specialized in helping children understand non-traditional family structures. On Saturday afternoon, they sat Sophie down in her room, surrounded by her stuffed animals and her butterfly decals, and tried to find the words. "Sophie, sweetheart," Maya started, her voice already unsteady. "We need to talk to you about something important, about your family and where you came from." Sophie looked up from the coloring book she'd been working on, marker poised in midair. "Okay, Mama. You know how some families look different? How Emma has a daddy, but her mommy is in heaven, and you have a mama, but your daddy isn't part of our family?" Sophie nodded slowly. "Like how Jaden at daycare has 2 mommies, and Marcus has a grandma who takes care of him." "Exactly like that. Families come in all different shapes." Maya took a shaky breath. "Well, our family has a special story too. Before you were born, I had a sister named Rachel. She was my very best friend in the whole world." "Like me and Emma?" "Yes, like you and Emma. And Rachel was going to have a baby. She was going to have you. But Rachel got very sick when you were born, and she died, just like Emma's mommy died." Sophie's face scrunched up, trying to process this information. My first mama died? Yes, baby. Rachel was your first mama, and she loved you so much even though she only got to see you for a few minutes. And when she died, I promised her I would take care of you, so I became your mama. I chose you. You chose me? I chose you, Maya confirmed, tears streaming down her face now. Every single day I choose you. You're my daughter, Sophie. You've always been my daughter. But Rachel was your mama first, and she would want you to know about her. Sophie was quiet for a long moment, her small face serious. Then she climbed into Maya's lap and wrapped her arms around her neck. I'm glad you chose me, Mama. Maya sobbed, holding Sophie tight. Daniel moved closer, wrapping his arms around both of them, and Emma, who'd been listening from the doorway, came over to complete the circle. We all chose each other, Emma said wisely. That's what makes us family. Over the following weeks, Maya told Sophie more stories about Rachel, how she loved to paint, how she had the same dark eyes Sophie had, how she was brave and kind and would have been an amazing mother if she'd gotten the chance. They looked at photos together, and Sophie studied the pictures of her birth mother with intense curiosity. She looks like me, Sophie observed, pointing at Rachel's smile in one photo. She does, Maya agreed. You have her smile in her eyes, and I think you have her big heart too. Do you miss her? Every day, but having you helps. You're the best part of her, Sophie. You're her gift to me. Sophie seemed to accept this with the remarkable adaptability of young children. She started telling people at daycare that she had two mamas, but one is in heaven with Emma's mama, which led to some confused conversations with other parents, but also to Sophie understanding her own story more fully. The adoption proceedings moved forward smoothly. Daniel's lawyer drew up the paperwork, and they appeared before a judge on a Thursday morning in July, both girls dressed up for the occasion. The judge, a kind woman in her 60s, smiled at their assembled family. This is an unusual case, she said, looking over the documents. Not the adoption itself, but the circumstances. Ms. Lewis, you adopted Sophie when she was an infant after her birth mother passed away. And now you and Mr. Carter are getting married, and he's petitioning to adopt Sophie as well. That's correct, Your Honor, Maya said. And you both feel this is in Sophie's best interest? Absolutely, they said in unison. The judge looked at Sophie, who was sitting between them, swinging her legs and humming quietly. Sophie, do you understand what's happening today? Sophie nodded seriously. Mr. Daniel is becoming my daddy for real, and Emma's becoming my real sister even though she already was. And how do you feel about that? I think it's good. Daddies are important. Emma has one, and now I do too. The judge smiled. Well, I think you're right. Daddies are important. She signed the papers with a flourish. Congratulations, Mr. Carter. You're officially Sophie's father. Emma cheered, and Sophie clapped her hands, not fully understanding the significance but feeding off everyone's happiness. Daniel looked at Maya, at their daughters, at the family they'd built from broken pieces, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. They celebrated at Sophie's favorite restaurant, the one with the crayons and the chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs. Margaret joined them, having taken the day off work to be at the courthouse. She'd brought a cake that said, "Welcome to the family, Sophie," in pink frosting. I'm already in the family, Sophie pointed out, but she was delighted by the cake anyway. That night, as Daniel was tucking Sophie into bed, his daughter now, legally and completely, she looked up at him with those dark eyes that were so like Rachel's. Mr. Daniel, she said, can I call you Daddy now, since you're my daddy for real? Daniel's chest felt tight. I would really like that, sweetheart. Okay, Daddy. She smiled and closed her eyes, asleep within minutes. Daniel stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her breathe, marveling at how his family had expanded to include this small person who'd come into his life by chance and stayed by choice. He thought about Rachel, the woman he'd never met but who'd given him this gift. He hoped she knew Sophie was loved, was safe, was thriving. The wedding planning consumed the next few months. Maya wanted something simple, just family and close friends, nothing elaborate. But the girls had opinions, many opinions, about everything from the color scheme to the cake flavors to whether they should release butterflies or doves. Neither, Maya said firmly. We're not releasing anything. Animals aren't decorations. But it would be so pretty, Emma whined. How about bubbles? Daniel suggested. People can blow bubbles when we walk out after the ceremony. The girls considered this and deemed it acceptable, though clearly a compromise. Jennifer was maid of honor, and both girls would be flower girls, as Emma had insisted. Tom would walk Maya down the aisle, a gesture that had made her cry when he'd offered. Your father should be doing this, Tom had said gently. But since he's chosen not to be part of your life, I'd be honored to step in. Thank you, Maya had whispered, hugging him. That means everything. 2 weeks before the wedding, Patricia finally called. Daniel answered warily, expecting more criticism or attempts to undermine their plans. I owe Maya an apology, Patricia said without preamble, and I owe you an apology too. I was wrong about her, about all of this. What changed your mind? Your father. He told me I was being a bitter old woman who was going to lose her son and granddaughter if I didn't get my head out of my... Well, he used stronger language than that. Patricia sighed. And he was right. I was so focused on protecting Catherine's memory that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. Maya's good for you. She's good for Emma. And I should have trusted you to know what your own family needs. I appreciate you saying that, Mom. I'd like to come to the wedding, if you and Maya will have me. Daniel looked across the room at Maya, who was helping Sophie practice walking in her flower girl dress without tripping. Hold on. He covered the phone. My mother wants to come to the wedding. She apologized. Maya's eyebrows rose. Did hell freeze over? Apparently my father gave her a reality check. Daniel waited. What do you think? Maya was quiet for a moment, then nodded. She can come. But if she says one inappropriate thing, Jennifer has permission to escort her out. Daniel relayed this to Patricia, who agreed to the terms with surprising humility. When he hung up, Maya came over and wrapped her arms around him. Look at us, she said, building bridges, forgiving people, being mature adults. I hate being a mature adult, Daniel said. It's exhausting. Tell me about it. The wedding day arrived with perfect autumn weather, clear skies and warm sun, trees blazing with color. They'd chosen to get married in the backyard of their house, the space where their family had grown and thrived. White chairs were set up on the lawn, flowers from Margaret's garden decorated everything, and a simple arch stood at the end of the aisle covered in vines and fairy lights. Daniel stood under that arch in his navy suit, watching guests arrive and trying to keep his nerves under control. Tom appeared beside him, straightening his tie. How you holding up, son? I'm good. Great. Terrified. Daniel laughed. Is it normal to be this nervous? Completely normal. I threw up twice before my wedding to Patricia. Tom smiled. But you're doing the right thing. Maya's wonderful, and those girls of yours are something special. The ceremony started with music from a string quartet that Jennifer had insisted they needed. Emma and Sophie walked down the aisle, scattering rose petals with varying degrees of accuracy. Emma, precise and measured, Sophie, enthusiastic and chaotic. They reached the front and took their places, both of them beaming with pride in their matching lavender dresses. Then Maya appeared at the end of the aisle on Tom's arm, and Daniel forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful in a simple ivory dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes bright with tears and happiness. She was smiling at him like he was the only person in the world, and Daniel felt his own eyes sting as she walked toward him. Tom placed Maya's hand in Daniel's at the altar, whispered, "Take care of my girl," and stepped back. The officiant, a friend from Daniel's teaching days, began the ceremony, but Daniel barely heard the words. He was too focused on Maya's face, on the way her hand trembled slightly in his, on the realization that this was really happening. Daniel and Maya have chosen to write their own vows, the officiant said. Daniel, would you like to begin? Daniel took a breath, tried to steady his voice. Maya, when I met you, I was convinced my life was finished, that I'd had my chance at happiness and lost it, and all that was left was going through the motions for Emma's sake. You proved me wrong. You showed me that hearts can expand to hold new love without diminishing old love, that families can be built instead of just born, that second chances are real if you're brave enough to take them. He had to pause, compose himself. You're an incredible mother to both our daughters, an amazing partner, my best friend, And I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you know how loved you are, how valued, how absolutely essential you've become to our family. I choose you, Maya, today and every day for the rest of our lives." Maya was crying openly now, not even trying to hide it. She wiped her eyes and took her own shaky breath. "Daniel, you saw me on the worst night of my dating life, harried and defensive, carrying a toddler to a first date because my childcare fell through. And you didn't run. You stayed. You've been staying ever since, and that's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me." Her voice broke. "You've shown me what partnership looks like, what it means to be truly supported and believed in. You've loved Sophie like she was yours from the beginning, given Emma a mother's love even though no one could replace Catherine. You've built a home with me, a life with me, a family with me. And I promise to treasure that, to honor it, to wake up every day and choose you back. I love you, Daniel Carter, completely and forever." The officiant had to clear his own throat before continuing. "By the power vested in me by the state of Washington, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Daniel, you may kiss your bride." Daniel cupped Maya's face gently and kissed her while their daughters cheered and their guests applauded and bubbles filled the air, catching the afternoon light and making everything sparkle. When they broke apart, they turned to face their family and friends as a married couple, as an official family, as proof that love could survive loss and fear and doubt to become something beautiful. The reception was exactly what they'd wanted, casual and warm and full of laughter. The girls ran around with other children while adults ate and drank and told embarrassing stories. Patricia approached Maya during dinner, her face carefully neutral. "Maya, I owe you an apology, a real one, not over the phone." Patricia took a breath. "I was wrong about you. I let my grief over Catherine cloud my judgment, and I said terrible things. You're a wonderful mother, a wonderful partner for Daniel, and I should have seen that from the beginning." Maya studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that. I know this hasn't been easy for you. May I start over? Be a proper grandmother to both girls? I'd like that. They could use more family." Maya paused. "But Patricia, if you ever make me feel less than again, if you ever suggest I'm not Sophie's real mother or that I'm trying to replace Catherine, we're done. I won't expose my daughter to that kind of toxicity." "Understood. And fair." Patricia actually smiled. "You're tougher than I gave you credit for." "I've had to be." Daniel watched this exchange from across the yard, saw the tension in Maya's shoulders, even as she kept her voice calm and measured. When Patricia walked away, he went to his wife and pulled her close. "You okay?" "I'm perfect," Maya said. "I just set boundaries with your mother, and she actually respected them. That's as close to perfect as I can imagine." As the sun set and the party continued under string lights, Daniel found himself standing with Tom and Margaret, watching Emma and Sophie dance with wild abandon to music only they could hear. "You've built something special here," Margaret said quietly. "Catherine would be so proud of you, Daniel, of the father you've been to Emma, of the family you've created." "I hope so. I know so." Margaret squeezed his arm. "And I'm proud of you too. It takes courage to love again after loss. You and Maya both have that courage." Tom raised his glass. "To second chances and chosen families." They toasted, and Daniel felt the full weight of what they'd built settle over him. Not heavy, but grounding. This was his life now. This beautiful, complicated, imperfect, absolutely right life. Later, after the guests had left and the girls were asleep upstairs, exhausted from dancing and cake and excitement, Daniel and Maya sat on their back porch swing, still in their wedding clothes, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "We did it," Maya said softly. "We actually did it." "We did." Daniel pulled her closer. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Carter?" "Strange and wonderful." She looked at her ring, the wedding band now sitting beside the engagement ring. "I keep thinking about Rachel, about how she should be here, how she should have gotten to raise Sophie, to see her grow up." "I know, but she gave Sophie to you because she trusted you to love her the way she would have. And you've done that, Maya. You've given Sophie an amazing life." "We've given her an amazing life," Maya corrected. "You're as much her parent as I am now." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from deep understanding and shared history. Daniel thought about the journey that had brought them here, From that rainy first date to this perfect evening, from two broken families to one whole one. What are you thinking? Maya asked. That I'm incredibly lucky. That we're incredibly lucky. Daniel tilted her face up to kiss her. And that I can't wait to see what comes next. More chaos, probably. The girls start kindergarten and pre-K in a few weeks. More family dinners and bedtime negotiations and stepping on toys in the dark. More life, Maya said simply. More love. Yeah, Daniel agreed. More love. Inside the house, they could hear Sophie calling for water and Emma telling her to go back to sleep in that bossy older sister tone she'd perfected. Maya started to get up, but Daniel pulled her back. I'll get it. You stay here. He went inside and found both girls out of bed, Sophie demanding water and Emma explaining why she didn't really need any since she'd already had 2 glasses. Back to bed, both of you, Daniel said, filling Sophie's sippy cup. It's late and tomorrow's a school day. But Daddy, Emma protested, we're too excited to sleep. You just got married. We got married 6 hours ago. The excitement should be wearing off by now. Never, Sophie declared dramatically, then yawned hugely. Daniel got them both back in bed, tucked them in, kissed foreheads. I love you both. Now sleep. Love you too, Daddy, they chorused. He stood in the hallway between their rooms, listening to their breathing slow and even out, feeling the profound responsibility and joy of fatherhood wash over him. These were his daughters, both of them, his to protect and guide and love unconditionally. When he returned to the porch, Maya had her phone out, looking at something on the screen. She turned it to show him, a photo Jennifer had taken during the ceremony of all 4 of them together, the girls holding their hands, everyone smiling. Our family, Maya said softly. Our family, Daniel confirmed. They'd been through so much to get here, loss and grief and fear and doubt, but they'd chosen each other anyway, had chosen to be brave, had chosen to believe that love was worth the risk. And standing there on their porch in their wedding clothes, their daughters asleep upstairs, their whole life ahead of them, Daniel knew with absolute certainty that they'd made the right choice. The best families weren't the ones you were born into. They were the ones you chose, the ones you built from broken pieces and second chances and stubborn hope. They were messy and imperfect and required constant work, but they were real and they were worth it. Daniel pulled Maya close, breathing in the scent of her perfume and the last lingering traces of wedding flowers. I love you, Mrs. Carter. I love you too, Mr. Carter. She smiled against his chest. Thank you for being brave enough to stay that first night, for seeing us instead of running away. Thank you for giving me a chance to stay. He kissed the top of her head, for being brave enough to try again. We're pretty good at being brave, aren't we? We're getting there. They stayed on the porch until the stars were fully visible, until the night had deepened and the temperature had dropped enough that they were both shivering. Then they went inside to their house, their family, their life, imperfect and beautiful and absolutely, completely theirs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, but tonight they simply held each other and marveled at how far they'd come, how much they'd survived, how love had found them when they weren't even looking for it. In the quiet house, with their daughters dreaming upstairs and the future stretching out before them full of promise, Daniel and Maya built something that would last. Not because it was perfect, but because they chose it. Every single day, they chose it. And that choice, renewed daily through patience and forgiveness and stubborn dedication, was what transformed a collection of wounded individuals into a family. A real family. A chosen family. A family that proved love didn't have to be easy to be worth everything.